So just a quick look, we actually can relate to how each of the practices that we have now got into agile software development in lean. So it actually kind of converges and then goes back to how it originated from lean in the late 80s. So if you look at how for example, the context of Scrum or any Kanban kind of agile software development, you've got this kind of lean software setup. So you've got people who are working in teams which are with absolutely no roles. It's just a team. Everybody's a team member, no matter whether you're a programmer, whether you're a tester, architect, analyst, doesn't matter. Every one of us is a team member. And then we're working together to create that product increment, and that is potentially ready to be deployed into the production environment. So essentially what we're trying to do is to create an environment which is healthy, which is safe, and which is in order. And that's why you don't have a lot of desk space now in the offices. In the last, at least I've been working in the IT industry for over 20 years. I started in 2000. And in the last 20 years, there's so much change in the way even IT operated. Initially, it started off with, as I mentioned earlier as well, we don't have to have really big factory setups, not much of assembly lines. We just used to have just the desktops and a desk, maybe one or two drawers to actually put the stuff in, and then there's a desktop in front of us and perhaps a telephone. That was the setup about 10 years ago. And the same IT, if you look now, I guess, and maybe in the near future, as in the next few years, there's no desk, there's no, this whole hot desking now. So you can potentially, we're all working from home nowadays. There's no desk there as well. There's no desktop, there's no desk, there's all laptop, and perhaps even work can get done using the mobile phones and tablets. So it cannot be any leaner than what we're trying to operate on, right? So the overheads that you have on the business in terms of your IT setup is like really, really slim, very lean compared to, let's say, an engineering setup where you should have huge factories, and the factories have got equipment, inventory, raw materials, nothing in IT. So it's all down to how people had been trying to focus on lean and how they're trying to implement the lean within the IT setup as well. And then in the context of DevOps, for example, the latest trend, people had been actually trying to push things in the context of just-in-time production. So there's not much of waste there. People trying to create loads and loads of software. It's not there anymore. People trying to now write software just enough. And there's already some of the code, there's some code repository. So if you want to reuse some of the code that is written by your peer, by your team member, by all means, you can use it. So it's not about writing thousands of lines of code, which was about 2 decades ago. Now it's all about writing functions, writing calls, APIs, which are executing the same thing with maybe one, as I mentioned, example of Python and SPSS software that I used I think roughly about 2099, 2000 was when I was working on a project where I used a software called SPSS, which is a statistical package. And now it's taken over by IBM about 4 years ago anyway. So that SPSS software is used to actually, it was primarily targeted for the statistical processes, statistical methods. So I used that and during my MBA days to work on a project to go through some of the marketing survey feedback and all the data, to analyze the data and write a regression model and create a cluster analysis model. So I created that, and because I was a student of statistics, I opted for that. So turned out I actually created a monster. I had to write no less than 20,000 lines of code just to come up with the basic analysis of this data. And I had to spend almost 3 months with SPSS to code using that.